head and that's on my head. And
most of whom had little understanding of what they were seeing. But what they did witness that day was UGA beating Tech in those 10 minutes of glory. And I don't think we lost to Tech for the next 3 years. But Kirk was not about inflating our egos. Early in the 1976 season, our first full season under his tutelage, he arranged for us to play the likes of NC State and Yale, who showed us how the game should be played. We learned fast from those humbling moments and soon earned his faith in us. The 1976 season and the following season too, UGA lacrosse was the Southeast Lacrosse League champions and had a number of players on the league all-star team. Others will have their memories of Coach Knisely they want to share. For me, I just want to say thanks for the gift of his mentorship at UGA and his friendship over the years. I played lacrosse throughout my 20s and even met my wife at a lacrosse game. I also coached for 15 years at the secondary school level. And I'd like to think that a little of Kurt Knisely's character had rubbed off on me. Here's to you, Coach.
You're on. There's a mic here.
In between.
Mr. Grover. Mr. Grover.
You knew my name before in South Carolina.
You still blame me for that.
Yes, I do. Hello? Is it working?
It's working.
Cool. I actually did one of these, but when Chris came back and said that there was going to be a live mic, I said live is better than tape. While that picture's still up there, that's me standing next to Kurt in the brown sweater. Anyway, I was part of that first team, but my history with this family actually goes back to the Borneys. Lee Borney was my political science teacher and my wrestling coach in high school. I'd never even heard of Kurt Knisely before then. And Coach Borney was such a good wrestling coach, I will tell you that I had the strongest neck in the state of Georgia. Spent a lot of time on my back, right, Lee? I was fortunate to be part of that first team in Georgia. And
hi, this is Thomas.
I was talking with the priest earlier, and I did not know that Kurt's baptismal name was Athanasius. And when I heard that and rough around the edges, it made me think of the Athanasian Creed, which we use in the Lutheran Church, Greek Church, Catholic Church, major Protestants. And if you want to read a creed or say a creed that's rough around the edges, it's the Athanasian Creed. So a little bit of history, go back and look that up. But I was part of that first team in Georgia. And I didn't remember this till Kurt's induction into the Hall of Fame, when he told the story of how a cross had saved his life. And if you haven't heard that story,
We're going to play it a little bit.
are you? If you haven't heard that story, it'll give you goosebumps. It will shiver. But he talked about how that game saved his life. And I remember that night took me back to the first team meeting when Kirk got to Georgia. And I remembered that's where I'd heard that story before. And I had forgotten it. Kurt was a godly man. The taking a knee before a game was tradition and the Lord's Prayer. And I know again in your church, our church, we believe in God the Father, creator of heaven and earth. Lacrosse is a very fraternal game. There's not many of us out there. The whole country. It's grown, but it's a very fraternal game. It's also called the Creator's Game, for those that don't know that. And there's even a story of the Creator, how the game got started, which is for another time. But for those of us in the sport of lacrosse, and this doesn't hit everybody. This doesn't hit everybody, but there's a time when you're in that sport when you get it. You get what the Creator brought to the table. And not every lacrosse person gets that. And it's like an epiphany, it's like a baptism. You don't know if it hits you all at once or if it's a slow growth thing or whatever. But there's a point in time in this sport where a lot of us really hook up with the Creator, and I just am butchering the explanation of it. Kurt had it before I even met him. And you can tell from that story of how this game saved his life. That he and the Creator were one. I'm fortunate. I hit that spot too. I've had the pleasure of officiating since 1979. I played with Kurt, graduated in 78, started college club ball in 79, and I've actually worked my way up to the national championships and stuff as a referee who played club ball under Kurt Knisely at the University of Georgia. That said, I'm a better referee than I was a player. Just ask Kurt and Chris and Chris. When I got here and saw Chris and Kurt, big Chris and Kurt, earlier, Chris was telling me how he spent time in the penalty box, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, not like your brother. and Kurt came over, and I kind of said the same thing to him, and I even looked at him. Now, keep in mind, it was the 80s when you guys played. I looked at Kurt, and I said, you were number 7, weren't you? I even knew his number. I said, off to the box.
That's not
But I know this family. I went down to the farm and jotted down the road, which is where I saw Appleby to Washington as we watched the Georgia-Florida game. I remember being there at Appleby to Washington at a get-together with Kurt and Barbara. By the way, Barbara, that was a head of hair before you got there. Yeah, anyway, remember going to the farm and jotting down the road, which is where Laney actually horseback rode with me behind me on a horse. Matthew, where is Matthew? I don't know you. I don't know you. When I sent the word out, I said, keep the 3 kids in prayer, Kurt, Chris, and Laney. Then when I saw the obit, I went, oh yeah, they had Woots. I forgot. I didn't shake your hand and meet you because I do not know you.
It was a good mistake.
That it is. But anyway, again, just a great run with this family. And again, Kurt's love and passion for this game is unequaled by anybody. He had it. And like I said, he taught me this game as a player. And that introduction from him took me to the world of officiating, which this will be my, 43rd year as a referee. Doing high school, college, pro, and youth. But I won't do under 9. And again, I go back to Coach Borney, and I do need to finish with this story. Because Lee reffed some of the games when I was playing. And that year that we did NC State and Yale, he also brought Michigan down to play us. And we were holding our own with Michigan. And then one of our players went off sides while Michigan had the ball, and Lee correctly threw the flag. And in the sport of lacrosse, he can keep on going and play. He's already got a penalty on him, so he might as well go on down and continue to play. He stopped, didn't go. The player next to him went. Anyway, Lee throws the flag, and the second player goes down. We lost by 1 after they scored. Lee and Kurt fought about that call, probably up until the day Kurt died. Lee got it right. Knisely family, thank you. Lee, good to see you again.
Hi, this is Tom Sewell. I played lacrosse at the University of Georgia from 1977 to 1980. I'd like to offer some thoughts about Kurt and his significant impact on our program. I showed up in Kurt's second year coaching at UGA. As Jerry said earlier, Kurt liked to dream big. Except for our financial funding through the student union, and I suspect a fair amount out of his own pocket, he would never have known we were a club team. Through Kurt's relationship with Vince Dooley, he managed to get full access to the training room and athletic fields. To this day, I believe we are still the only team other than the football team to practice and play inside the tall brick walls of the football complex. For the 1977 season, Kurt continued to add quality opponents to our schedule. You can see we played a hybrid schedule against varsity and club teams. We finished 10-4 overall and second in our league with only 1 loss. Some of our players made all league. Our athletic certificates were signed by Joel Eves, UGA athletic director at the time. Again, I'm not sure how Kurt pulled that one off. Despite our club status, Kurt made sure all of our games were covered extensively by the Red and Black and Athens Banner Herald. In 1978, Kurt raised the bar even higher. He helped form the Southeastern Lacrosse League, and we are now members of the USILA, the NCAA lacrosse governing body. Our statistics would now count, and we would be eligible for the postseason. Our schedule got more competitive as we played several Division I and II programs. We ended up 10-5 overall and 8-3 in the league. We beat Georgia Tech, who had scholarship players at the time, in the last game of the year to win the SELL. Again, several of our players made all league, and our goalie led the nation in save percentage. We were the envy of all the other club programs at UGA. I have no doubt Coach would have kept raising that bar and our team would eventually reach varsity status. But in 1979, Title IX kicked in. Even though the team was relegated to the intramural fields of perpetual club status after the 1978 season, Kurt continued to coach for many more years. He loved getting together with us at our alumni reunions, and in recent years, he served on the UGA Lacrosse Alumni Board. He always made time and was willing to call anyone over at the university to try to help the men's lacrosse program. Even after he hung up his whistle, his commitment to UGA and lacrosse in general never stopped, as evidenced by his election into both the UGA and State of Georgia Lacrosse Hall of Fames, where he gave a very heartfelt speech. I wish I had video of that talk. I was honored to be elected with Kurt and several teammates in our inaugural UGA Lacrosse Hall of Fame. All of us owe a huge debt of gratitude to Kurt. Here's to you, Coach, and go Dogs.
No doubt.
this speech that everybody keeps talking about. So Kurt loved Facebook. I think Facebook was created for Kurt guys. Wait.
Steph, while you're doing this, Coach Hook might want to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if anybody.
Coach Hook, you
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Hook. I had the pleasure of coaching with Coach Knisely. We started, well, let me back here. I played with the Atlanta Lacrosse Club. I started in '83 and finished up in about '95 when I quit playing. So I knew Kurt by reputation and the Knisely family. I'd never met him, but we played a lot of games against UGA. And let's just say those games were spirited. We'll use that word because they were a lot of fun. Anyway, so when I started coaching with the rec department in Oconee, we were going along, and then the rec department decided to drop lacrosse as one of its programs. So a group of parents got together, and we started GOLD, Greater Oconee Area Lacrosse, and the Oconee Night program. And I was the first coach. In fact, I was the only coach because nobody else knew how to do it at the time. And I'd been coaching for a while. So one day, Christine Salzman came out and she said, "Hey, we've got this guy in our church that knows lacrosse. Would you like for him to come out and see if he can help out?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great." Here comes Kurt. And I'm like, "Oh, great, okay." I didn't have any formal coaching training. I just showed up. I knew how to play lacrosse. Kurt was a coach. And so I was used to high school players, especially the younger ones who didn't know how to play very well. A lot of them had never seen a stick until they showed up with us. Kurt was used to kids from college, and he was expecting a level of responsibility that he just wasn't going to get from a young high school kid. And I had to kind of tweak Kurt a little bit to like, okay, these kids are being brought by their parents. They can't always get here on time. You can't make them run for stuff that they don't have any control over. And so we went back and forth, but his philosophy, like he did at Georgia, was we're going to make this a high school team. It's not a club team. We're going to treat these kids like high school varsity players, which hopefully they will be at some point. So we did. They buckled a little bit. We went back and forth, but Kurt and I, we reached an understanding, and I learned so much from him. We spent a lot of time driving to games, talking lacrosse, talking life, talking family. He loved to talk about his family, his grandkids. Loved to talk about his church and his faith. It was very educational riding with him. And like I said, hopefully he learned a little bit from me too. And then, where was I going with this? Oh, okay. So then we ended up leaving the Knights program, Kurt and I did. So a couple years later, and I knew he was still working with the Oconee Board of Directors and trying to get lacrosse into the high schools. And he was a big driving force in that. So when they had agreed to start programs at North Oconee and Oconee, Kurt called me. He said, "You really need to be coaching." He said, "You need to be back coaching." Because I had pretty much written it off. I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. Kurt just basically was like, you need to do this. This is something you're made for. You need to do it. All right, I'll do it. And Chris and I helped start the Oconee High School team. And Kurt, even though he wasn't coaching, he was still coaching.
From the sidelines.
He would show up on the sideline. They're not doing this. They're not doing this. I'm like, I know that. I can't do it. And so it was just funny because you could hear him from behind us yelling at people. I'm like, okay. Like, Chris, you talk to him. He's like, no, you won't listen to me. Chris would find me like, would you go tell him? I'm like, fine. So anyway, all that to say, I love Kurt. I really did. He was a mentor. He was a friend. I knew that if I needed him, that all I had to do was pick up the phone, and he would be there for me. And he's going to be missed. Yeah, and I love you. All right, so family, sorry for your loss. I'm glad we're both a small part of it. Thank you.
All right.
Wow, look at this. 94% of
So this has a prelude. Is that correct? Prequel of from Tom. Is it Tom Sewell? Anyway, he's already spoken, so we're going to skip over that and just play it. Get that. Got it. Hold on. Hold on. You're welcome.
Turn this up.
Atlanta Falcons game, we played the pregame. And then Chicago Bears came on the field to play the Falcons in the Monday night game. And Chicago immediately scored 2 touchdowns, and 50,000 people were stopping and praying back across.
All right, so he's talking about Kurt basically orchestrated. Georgia had never seen lacrosse before on the big screen, and he orchestrated somehow a scrimmage game at the beginning of a Falcons game. So here's Georgia Tech on the field at Falcons Stadium, and they were playing, and as you heard on the previous video, Georgia won, but the fans were like, what are we watching? And then as they were playing New York, right? You said? Chicago, sorry, they're playing Chicago Bears. And then they were losing, so Falcons were losing, and they started chanting, "Bring back lacrosse." All right,
That's
yeah.
true.
True story.
That's a true story. I wanted to tell you that some of the most important things about lacrosse are not achievements and not championships and not wins, but prior to coaching my first game at Georgia, we were a little nervous. It was my first game coaching Georgia Tech. And their first game under me. And I asked them, I said, guys, you think we ought to say a prayer? And the team just got together immediately and bowed down and said the Lord's Prayer. And for 43 years, every team I've coached has said the Lord's Prayer before every game. And to the point when I was coaching at Georgia, my 5-year-old used to come to all the huddles and get in the huddles and say the Lord's Prayer with the team. And one day he came up to the congregation early from Sunday school, and just as we were about to say the Lord's Prayer, the church was packed. And we said the Lord's Prayer, and right at the conclusion, he goes, "Go old dog, say it." We thought that was part of the Lord's Prayer. Absolutely true. And I didn't know that, you know. But, so that's really important, and I just want to tell you why it's so important. I don't know if any of you have ever been touched by or seen a real angel, but I have. My dad died when I was 2 years old in Brooklyn, New York. My mom moved me and my older brother to a farm because he had owned a farm in remote Vermont. In fact, I went to a one-room schoolhouse, my first school class. Then she met a man who came up fishing, and she got married, moved us back to New York, to Brooklyn. And in Brooklyn, that's where I learned not only how to play stickball, but how to curse, how to smoke, how to steal rides on trolley cars. I mean, you know, I learned, a country boy coming back to Brooklyn, we had to make our weather. We had to establish our turf. And so we did. Eventually, we moved to a small house in Long Island. And I joined the game. I was in a game. And I did a lot of things I wasn't proud of. I was shot at a few times. I did a lot of things. Every time I was arrested, the police would call my house and my stepfather and say, "Keep him. I don't want him here." When my older brother got to be 16, they immediately, permanently kicked him out of school. One day I was having a fight outside school with a kid, and so the teachers broke it up. And one of them said, "You're Kurt Knisely, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You think you're tough?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You're not tough enough to be on my team." And I said, "What's your team?" He said, "I'm the new lacrosse coach at Yale High School. But forget it, you're not tough enough." I showed up to lacrosse practice in the city and wanted to prove him wrong. And after a few weeks, he knew, how enthused I was about this great sport of lacrosse. So he said, "You have to cut your hair." I said, "On my team." I said, "Yeah, but I cut my hair." And a little while after that, he said, "Kurt, you have to have a fee average to play on my team." I said, "Coach, it's impossible." I said, "My highest grade was a D." I said, "I had a B and R." I said, "It's impossible." He said, talk to your teachers. Talk to your teachers and see what happens." So I talked to my teachers. And not only did I graduate with honors, passed the Regents with flying colors, I was an All-American first team high school defenseman for Long Island, and I got a full scholarship to college. So it totally changed my life. I played with the Atlanta Lacrosse Club not the Atlanta, but the Long Island Lacrosse Club after I graduated from Adelphi. And so in 1972, when I was asked to coach Georgia Tech, and this was many years later after my high school days, because I was in the high school in the mid-50s, I decided to call my old high school coach and share with him that I was going to coach Georgia Tech. This is before any call waiting, caller ID, or anything like that. I found his number through information. I called him. He answered the phone and he said, "Hi, Kurt." He's an angel. He's truly an angel. How did he know it was me? And how did he motivate me to do the things that I had done? A street kid. An angel touched a street kid. And he really touched me very firmly. Lacrosse is the game of the Creator. We know that. Remind me of the story about the young Iroquois brave. He said, "Grandfather, tell me about life." And his grandfather, who was an old chief, he said, "Well, son, I have two wolves within me, two wolves. As to you, and you, and you. And they're ready to do battle. One wolf is hatred and anger and jealousy. And the other wolf is kindness and faith and love." And the young boy said, "Well, Grandfather, which wolf will win?" He said, "The one that you feed will win." Coaches, you all have an opportunity, a great opportunity. There's still troubled kids out there. Even though the demographics have changed, times have changed, there are troubled kids out there. They need an angel. And if you can be that angel, I promise you, there won't be just one life that you change. I promise you. Thank you to the Lacrosse Hall of Fame for inviting me in, and thank you for listening. Thank you.
By the way, he did not write that speech.
No, he did not.
The whole
I
day,
asked
Mom
him.
kept saying,
He never wrote any speech.
Yeah.
I used to get so upset with him.
yeah.
Write him down.
So like, you need to take notes. And then everyone before him, right? They were reading from paper and they were, reading these things. And we're like, oh God, Dad's gonna blow it. What's gonna happen? And he had a couple beers and he went up there and he just did it.
He also spoke longer than everybody else too.
Hey,
Stephanie, I'll be your next interview. I didn't plan on giving a lacrosse story, but I'm so inspired and I'm so enjoying this. I really love the metaphor when they said the Creator's game. I said, whoa, that's inspiring. Because both my kids played lacrosse, and I went to their games. And I saw Stephanos, he was a little shy about it. He played, he loved it. It was out of the norm, And it was edgy, and he liked it. And Max followed in his brother's footsteps, and so he played his junior year, and it was kind of awkward. And I was hoping he'd persevere, and so he persevered. He was encouraged, and he kept at it. I saw a transformation in his senior year. He and Tyler, his good friend, his best friend from when they were little kids, connected. And they figured something out. And it was like magic watching them, because at any time they could command a goal. They were so intuitive, and they read the defense. And for Max, that gave him so much confidence and so much skill. It was fun to watch. And now I see where it comes from. That you got somebody looking after, that this is a creator's game that brings you to yourself. And you realize we're all together, and we're working as a team. And you have to step up, and you have to be courageous, and you have to take time. Too many times, Max would get discouraged and say, I can't do that. Well, you can't do it today. You're not going to master it the minute you step up and try something. But he stuck with it. And it really changed him and gave him confidence. Now I see where it came from. So that's quite a legacy. See? Keep affecting people. Thank you.
All right, we're going to lighten it up. There is, so as you heard, Papu, right here, he always had a joke ready. So this is thanks to George Stamatopoulos, who, but his mom, Lainey, recorded it, I believe, during Christmas. Yes, honey? What? I'm going to.
So big to come, and the captain comes down and they finally pull this big jug. It catches something that's so big, the whole crew has to come and help him. And the captain comes down and help, and they finally pull this big gigantic fish in. And the captain says, "That's the biggest son of a bitch I've seen all year, And the guy says, "I'm a priest. I don't use it." "No, Father. It's the name of the fish, some bitch, So the priest says, "Okay," brings the fish back. He's carrying the fish back to the convent. He sees the Mother Superior. And the Mother Superior says, "Wow, look at that fish. Yeah, I caught this son of a bitch." She says, Father, you can't. "No, that's the name of the fish. Don't worry about it. It's not a curse." So she says, "Well, I know how to clean it." So she takes it in, she's cleaning it, and the friar walks in. He says, "Wow, look at that fish, She says, "Yeah, Father caught that son of a bitch, and I'm cleaning it, He says, "Wow, I know how to season it. So let me season it." So the brand new bishop is coming for dinner tonight. And we'll serve this fish. So the new bishop comes, and they're all sitting around the table, and they bring out the fish. And the bishop says, "Wow, look at that fish, And the priest says, "Yeah, I caught that son of a bitch." The nun says, "Yeah, I cleaned that son of a bitch." The father said, the friar said, "Yeah, I seized that son of a bitch." And the bishop said, "You know what? I like you fuckers."
I should have had a warning, sorry. What?
So I was asked to talk. My brother called me yesterday, said, "Are you going to talk?" I'm like, "Am I supposed to talk?" "Yeah, you got to talk." Well, I didn't write anything down either. But I'm going to give you a couple stories, that had taught, my dad had taught me through his actions. So when we were moved, we were in the city, and in the city, each little neighborhood had a swim club. So we joined the swim club. I was deathly afraid of water. We'd go down to the pool with Mom, Dad. I'd get towed. Maybe stand by the stairs, hang on the side. The shallow end was just like here up to me at that point. I was 5 years old. Did this a couple times. So my dad understands I'm afraid of water. Can't swim very well. Makes the dog paddle. He'd take me out, hold me, I'd dog paddle. Immediately grab the side. So, what does a father do to a son that's deathly afraid of water and can't swim? Well, he signs him up for the swim team. We didn't go to swim lessons first. We went straight to swim team. So the throwing in the water part's coming. So he takes me down to the pool, and he says, "My son's going to be on your swim team." So I get in the water. I'm holding the side. Get in the middle. No. So he tells the coach, if he won't swim, pick him up and throw him in the water. So I get out of the pool. Coach takes me and throws me in the water. My dad's still there. So he looks at the coach, and later on I realized what he was thinking. He was like, "No, you idiot, don't throw him in the shallow end. Throw him in the deep end." So he told him, "Look, here's how you do it." Threw me in the deep end. I come to the side. I get thrown back in. This happened 3 or 4 times until I realized I wasn't getting out of it. So I freed my mind. I'm young. 3 weeks later or whatever, I'm in my first swim meet. Well, they put the fast people in the middle and all the slow ones and everything on the side. Well, I was right next to the wall. And all it was one lap straight down. So I swim, and I swim, and I swim. And I get tired, and I get scared, and I grab the side. And I get out of the pool, and it wasn't from like this mic to there, as I had to finish. Didn't matter. Got home, my dad, Mom, we're so proud of you for trying. We're so, you did great, you did this. And I tell my dad, I think I could have made it. But I got scared, and I got tired. And he said, well, now you know you could have made it. But you can not swim anymore if you don't want to. Well, I ended up, by the half, I decided I was going to continue to swim. Halfway through the year, I was swimming in the middle. I never swam on the end again. So a little later in life, talking to him, and I'm like, remember when you kept throwing me in the pool? This and that? And he said, yep. And I said, I'm glad you did, because I really enjoyed swimming. Because I swam from 5 years old to 13 years old until we moved to the country and they didn't have any swimming. But why'd you do it? And he said, you had to learn to tackle your fear. You had to learn that you could do it and you can't let fear hold you back. So that was one of my life stories that he gave me, and I kept it. I never knew my dad to lie, cheat, or steal. Except maybe once. Could have been a lie. I'll let Father decide this. So when I, again, probably the same age, my uncle was involved with this. I got beaten up. My first fight ever, I got beaten up. So my dad's like, you're never going to get beaten up again. So he teaches me how to box. At that young age, it's not much. He teaches me to box. He gets my uncle because he's a wrestler, and wrestle me and throw me around. I'm screaming, this and that. Lasts for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then, okay. As I got older, he bought me a heavy bag, and he said, and that's how he taught me to defend myself. He taught, because he had boxed Golden Gloves in New York and everything, so he taught me how to defend myself by boxing. But he did tell me, you will never use this as a bully. You will only use this to defend yourself. So I understood, because at that time he was still young and pretty strong. He said, if you ever use that as a bully, you have to deal with me. So yes, sir. As I'm going into high school, I get in some fights. Maybe a little more than some other children. So finally, after one fight, I'd beaten up the I guess what they called was the main drug dealer in the high school. We got in a conflict, we got in a fight, and that was it. So he comes back, and he says, well, son, if you're going to fight, we're going to do it the right way, and we're going to do it competitively. Well, my mom went first. My son will not box. I forbid him to box. Okay, I forbid you to take him to box. Dad calmed her down and said, this won't last long. Look, this is right before we were leaving. She didn't know we were going. So he takes me to the gym. It's the East Athens Community Center. First thing that I noticed when I got there is none of the people there looked like me. Not one of them. So he gets out, and he had already called the boxing coach, everything, it was arranged. We get out, we step into the gym, and I'm just looking around. He pokes me. Stand tall, don't show emotion, look them in the eyes as you walk by. Yes, sir. So that's what we did. So that was another life lesson. I was uneasy. I was out of my element. I was not in my comfort zone. But he taught me then, you're not going to be in your comfort zone all the time. Deal with it. So we go to the gym, go see the coach. He said, here's your mouthpiece, here's your stuff. I want you to put him in the ring with your best fighter at his weight. I'm like, wait, what? So, then he left. I'll be back. It was for 2 hours. Okay, I'll be back. Pick him up. So the kid that was in my weight limit had just won the Georgia Golden Gloves. So I get in there and I box and I win. And he comes back 2 hours later. And I'm smiling, and the coach is gushing. You got to keep him. We got a champion in the making here. He's so talented. He just whipped my Georgia champion, Doug. And you should have seen my dad's face. It was like a mixture of and pride. So. And this is where I get it, because I do it to my son all the time. We get back in the car, he's asking me a question. So you beat him. Well, how'd you beat him? What'd you do? Get that. So at that point, we get back. Mom still, you will not box. I forbid you to box. You will not let him box. Well, little did you know, I boxed. He would take me to practice until I was old enough to drive. And I drive myself. I don't know what she was thinking when I come home with busted lips, scrapes from actual boxing matches. But at one point, I go to the gym, and I had gotten pretty good and was experienced. And I was training with another fella who had a lot less experience than me. And I was supposed to get him ready for a fight. I wasn't going to fight that week, but he was. So I had forgotten my mouthpiece. So with a lot of begging and pleading and negotiating, the coach let me get in without a mouthpiece. And I said, I've been boxing with this guy for a month. He can't touch me. I'm just okay. I'll just play around with it a little bit, get him ready. So we go in there and get in the ring and little things. Pop, pop, boom, everything's going like it's supposed to. And all of a sudden, wham, I get hit right flat, straight in the face, see stars, take a step back, spit out my 2 front teeth. So I drove home afterwards, somehow got past Mom, and went straight to my dad. At the time in Madison County where we lived, he had an actual office. So I went in there, showed him what happened, told him what happened. After a bunch of old boys, and my dad didn't cuss a whole lot, but there's a few words thrown out then. He says, well, we gotta go face the truth. So we went in, saw my mom in the kitchen. She cries, she yells, she screams, all of this. I told you, no boxing. After all of that, she calms it down. I'm getting ready to leave. And my dad said, I really need to come to one of his fights. He's actually really good. And actually, my mom says, I can see how good he is. He's missing his front teeth. So that's a true story. But he had taught me through those lessons that you have to face your fears and you have to figure out how to navigate your fears. He didn't say he never told me I had to go straight through my fears. Anybody said sometimes you go around them, sometimes you go above them, below them, but you face them. And he taught me that you will be put in uneasy positions sometimes in your life. And again, you have to be able to work around. And I hope that I've been able to do what he taught. Thank you.
I don't have any.
You don't have any more?
That's it. Yeah.
Christopher.
Christopher, did you want to say something? Just a little. Nick?
So about 15 years ago, I heard a sermon. It really touched me, and I can't take credit for it. It's a Presbyterian church in Albany, Georgia. There was no Greek Orthodox church, so we would go to the Presbyterian church, and we needed to receive communion. We'd go to either Columbus or Macon or Tallahassee. But it started out, and I remember the pastor saying, things aren't as it seems. And he started talking, back then it was, but I'll talk about today. 80 years ago, there were two leaders of countries. One was an angel or a saint, and one was a demon. And one of the leaders never drank, never smoked, didn't cuss. The other leader, he did drink scotch, maybe partied too much. He liked to smoke cigars. And he did cuss occasionally, maybe more frequently than he wanted to. The leader that was a teetotaler, he claimed to be the perfect human being. The other one often talked about the problems he had being a person. Things aren't as they seem. One of the leaders killed millions of people, and one of them saved millions. The teetotaler and the one that claimed to be perfect was Adolf Hitler. The other one was Winston Churchill. Who was the demon? Who was the saint? God was our Winston Churchill. Dad was our Winston Churchill. He knew he wasn't perfect as a person, but he loved God. He loved the cross, he loved the church, and everything he did was to help other people. And I've told my children, my nieces and my nephews, if you can touch half of the people that Dad touched, you will have lived a successful life.
Drop the mic.
I dropped the mic.
Anyone else? Yeah, okay. Well, we all love Kurt, and thank you all for being here today. We really appreciate it. Of course, stay tuned to Facebook. We'll upload whatever is there and upload it to Facebook. And just continue to give what God has given you and be good to others, and give love and share it abundantly to everyone. Thanks, y'all.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and forever, in the age of age. Amen. Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. Lord, bless the remains and multiply for the poor throughout the world. For you are holy now and forever, in the ages of ages. Amen. Memory eternal, Brother Kurt.
Thank you. Amen.